Hello, I'm here to talk about the history of video games in Russia. Video games began in the early 1980s with popular Soviet arcade games such as Morskoy Boy, also known as Sea Battle, which was a clone of the popular US game Sea Devil. And another famous arcade game at the time was Gorodki, which was Small Towns, which had no US equivalent. Many of these games were impacted by the complex culture of Russia, with some of the games like Konyok Gorbanok, which was also Little Humpbacked Horse, being rooted in Russian fairy tales and therefore only really gaining popularity in Russia. And as time went on and video games became more popular, some enthusiasts in the 1980s began developing games on imported and pirated computers such as the ZX Spectrum. And the games for these systems were often pirated, being distributed in cassette tapes with hand-drawn cover art, and the majority of these pirated games were of popular British ZX Spectrum games. But on the other hand, there was still a very small scene of local developers who made games like The Last Courier. And as time moved on, later into the 80s, the most popular and notable game from Russia, Tetris, was born by Alexei Pajitnov, and this game would gain a lot of popularity throughout the globe, expanding Russia's influence overall. And as the 1990s came into swing, post-Soviet era piracy became more and more popular as people were less able to afford luxuries like video game systems. The most popular and notable of these piracy games was the Dendy, which was a Famicom clone. And another form of piracy was in the cloning of cartridges, especially for the Sega Mega Drive, which were much more affordable and widespread than the original copies, creating a very large gray market. And as time went on through the 2000s to 2021, Russian developers grew exponentially, and this is mainly due to Russia's shift during the 2000s into a stronger educational focus on mathematics and theoretical computer science, combined with an economic need to excel in software development during the 1990s economic downturn. Studios like 1C Company and Nikita developed locally popular titles such as Men of War and Sphere. And later on, Russian developers would gain more popularity with games such as Metro 2033 and Atomic Heart. But with the beginning of the Ukrainian war in 2022, many prominent global developers based in Russia have since left the country. Some of these developers include Wargaming, the War of Tanks developer, and Playrix, the mobile game giant. And since then, the majority of the game market in Russia has focused towards mobile games, with roughly 2.3 billion being skewed towards that genre. So yeah, that's the history of Russian video games and the video game industry. Thanks for watching!